To Juliet Jelen Rosenta, the color blue is not merely a shade, it is a haunting memory that floods her mind. Every azure hue reminds her of his presence, and the selfless love he offered. But in a fit of stubborn pride, she had chosen red, letting blinding anger dictate her fate. Now, regret is a constant companion in her thoughts, a quiet, throbbing ache as she questions why he sacrificed so much for someone like her. But the answer is lost to the winds of the past. Seeking redemption, she steps into a realm beyond reality, where a mythical beast lies in wait. Its aura is overwhelming, commanding absolute authority, yet strangely, it does not strike fear into her heart. The creature speaks, its voice vibrating through her very soul. It names her Juliet Jelen Rosenta, the eternal princess, the fragile oppressor, the beloved traitor. Then, the beast demands her wish. Taking a trembling breath, she bares her soul. She desires only one thing: to reverse every mistake she has ever made. Memories flash before her eyes. She sees the man who gave his life for her, the one who endured her cruel tyranny without a single word of complaint. Her heart screams with a singular purpose. She longs to return to him, to finally give him the unwavering love he so desperately deserved. The beast gazes down at her. It reveals that the river of time and the land of death lie beneath its feet. And yet, it has bowed to her. Because of this submission, her wish shall be granted. The scene shifts to the distant past of Rosenta, to a legend whispered through generations. It was the tragic tale of the beautiful Princess Jal and Urgus, the hero who loved her with every fiber of his being. Urgus defied the impossible to win her heart. He scaled treacherous peaks for her jewels and slaughtered every enemy who dared to threaten her safety. Yet, her heart was fickle and cold. She broke him completely, handing him a glass of wine laced with deadly poison. She spurned his affection, refusing to even look at him as the toxin ravaged his body. Yet even then, his devotion remained shaken. He loved her until his final breath, in the present. Drian reads this story aloud, musing that if Juliet ever faces an unwanted suitor, she should simply handle him as Jal did. Juliet Jelen Rosenta, now 18 years old and in the bloom of youth, listens with a thoughtful expression. She remarks that if such terrifying words were taken seriously, a fool in love like Urgus might actually appear before her. She scoffs at the idea of forced affection. Love cannot be coerced. Drian teases her, suggesting she simply offer poison to any man she dislikes. But Juliet quickly dismisses the dark thought. She declares that she only wishes to be with a gentleman who respects her choices. Like any young maiden, she harbors a secret dream. She longs to meet her Prince Charming, envisioning a romance woven with pure devotion. Drian observes her wistful expression. He cynically remarks that such men are rare jewels. Most are simply loudmouthed fools with empty heads. This is Dian Intia Rosenta, the Crown Prince. His words are sharp, cutting through her fantasies with undeniable truths. Juliet ponders his words. Who would dare disobey a princess? She decides she will simply rely on her fiery temper to frighten away anyone who displeases her. However, Drian shifts the conversation to reality. He commands her to start eating properly from tomorrow onward. He reminds her that she needs physical strength and health before she can truly wield the weight of her royal authority. Juliet pouts, reluctant to hear a lecture, but then he drops important news: foreign envoys will be arriving the very next day. They are representatives from Nisante, the very nation they once aided militarily. They come now to offer a gesture of gratitude. Juliet finds this sudden visit suspicious after such a long absence, but the prince assures her it is merely a friendly diplomatic exchange. He departs to oversee the preparations, leaving Juliet alone with her swirling thoughts. In the silence, she feels a spark of hope. She prays the envoys are young, unlike the boring elders of the past, and dreams of finding someone who resembles the prince of her fairy tales. The next morning brings a buzz of activity. Juliet chats with a lady-in-waiting, asking if there has been a sighting of the Archduke of Nisante. Rumors say he is unwell, much like Juliet herself had been. A shared fragility sparks her interest. The lady admits she met him briefly at the welcome gala, but knows little. She whispers a warning: befriending such a man could provoke the crown prince's anger. Curiosity only burns brighter within Juliet. She learns the Archduke relies on potent herbs to sleep. The lady suggests the herbs may dull his mind, advising the princess to keep her distance for her own safety. but Juliet is determined to find a moment of peace. Ignoring the warnings, she decides to take a solitary walk in the palace gardens. As she strolls through the greenery, fate intervenes. She stumbles unexpectedly upon a man, the Archduke himself. Surprise flickers across her face, but she regains her royal composure, politely asking for his name. He answers with a single word, Enoch, and in that heartbeat, time seems to freeze. A stirring certainty rises in her chest. This is the man who will one day give his everything for her. She softly echoes the name, Enoch, letting it roll off her tongue like a secret spell. It is a name unfamiliar to her ears. Curious, she asks for his surname, and he replies quietly, Leia. She tilts her head, asking what brought him to this secluded spot. He explains he simply lost his way and wandered in by mistake. As she guides him toward the exit, she finds it amusing. She remarks that she has never met a servant so ignorant of the palace layout. He offers his humble thanks and walks away, leaving Juliet behind to wonder what kind of strange, beautiful servant she has just encountered. Later, she recounted the strange encounter to the maids, hoping for answers. But the servants exchanged confused glances, whispering that a servant with snowy hair and sapphire eyes didn't exist in the palace. Soon after, gossip reached her ears, suggesting that Rosenta must forge a political alliance with Nisante through blood and marriage. Instinctively, her eyes darted around the room, searching for Enoch in the crowd. She was advised to skip dinner due to her fragile health, but she stood her ground, declaring that a princess could not abandon her duty to dine with the envoys. Yet, even as she took her seat at the royal table, her heart wondered if that mysterious servant would appear again. Instead, news broke that the Grand Archduke had urgent business and would not be gracing them with his presence that night. Days turned into nights, and she attended every suffocating meal with the envoys. However, the silver-haired stranger remained a ghost. Even the Archduke, whom she suspected was the servant's master, was nowhere to be found. Rumors swirled that the Archduke was struck down by an illness, mirroring her own condition. The situation gnawed at her, sparking a deep restlessness she simply couldn't suppress. One afternoon, while she sought solitude, a deep voice suddenly drifted through the air, asking if he could push her swing. Startled, she spun around, demanding to know why he had trespassed without her permission yet again. He lowered his head, claiming he only returned to offer his thanks for her previous guidance. She reminded him sharply that she held every right to punish him for sneaking into her private garden. But instead of banishing him, she patted the spot beside her, confessing that she had actually been searching for him. She then begged him to paint a picture of his homeland, Nisante, admitting she had never stepped foot outside the palace walls. When he asked why, the truth spilled out. Her frail body was her prison, and her brother feared she would collapse if she danced even 2 songs in a row. Moved by her isolation, he decided to describe a world she might long to know. Her eyes lit up as she asked about the ocean, mentioning she heard it was the same striking blue as his gaze. He blushed, turning away to deny the comparison, but she caught his shyness and knew the rumors were true. Changing the subject, she asked if he knew how to dance. He admitted he lacked the skill, but whispered that he could learn if she desired it. Suspecting this was just an excuse to vanish, she challenged him, but he surprised her, standing up and asking her to be his teacher. She hesitated for a heartbeat before commanding him to show his potential. Taking her hand, he began to sway. Before long, she noted that his rhythm wasn't terrible. When he asked for a verdict, she pointed out his stiffness. Yet, she couldn't hide the smile in her voice, admitting she was glad he was there to break her solitude. As they moved together, she confessed the loneliness that had plagued her since her best friend became engaged and left the country. He suggested she write a letter, but she explained that marriage had severed that tie completely. He then asked if she was betrothed. She shook her head, declaring she would only marry for love, a luxury she didn't possess. Turning the tables, she questioned him. He admitted there was someone, but doubted she could ever return his feelings. When she pressed for a reason, his voice dropped to a whisper. It was because he was a terrible monster. He looked at her with intensity, asking if she truly believed one could change their destiny. As he spoke, he wove the tragic tale of his mother, a woman destroyed by a love so fierce she couldn't let go, even after her beloved abandoned her to the cold. He explained that passion ran like fire in his family, but that same love always became their ruin. It was his mother's cursed fate, and he believed that same doom flowed through his own veins. Because of this, He branded himself a monster, questioning who would dare corrupt something as sacred as love itself. Listening to his darkness, she looked inward and whispered that if that were true, she must be a monster, too. She confessed that she couldn't escape her destiny either. She revealed the shadow over her life, a mysterious illness with no name. Agonizing chest pains and fevers were her constant companions, forcing her to accept a destiny where she would die young. He tried to offer hope, suggesting her condition might one day fade. She hoped so, yet she couldn't ignore the fear that falling in love would only mean leaving someone behind to suffer the loss. She scolded him gently, telling him to never use that word again, reasoning that no monster would dance with a princess or share such a tender, sincere moment under the open sky. A heavy yet comfortable silence settled between them. Eventually, reality intruded. She asked how many more times they could steal these moments before the envoys returned to Nisante. He promised 5 more visits. With a determined smile, she told him to make sure he danced with her every single time. In response, he gently pressed his lips to her hand, a pleased smile playing on his face. Later, in the solitude of her chamber, the memory of that touch burned in her mind. A dangerous thought crept in. What if those lips had found hers instead? She shook her head violently, scolding herself for letting such shameless fantasies wander. A maid caught her staring into space, eyes glazed over, and asked if she was unwell, but the princess waved it off with a practiced, hollow smile. However, the maid had news. The crown prince's servant had stopped by during her absence. Intrigue piqued. She learned the Emperor of Nisanti had requested her presence for breakfast. Her brother had added a note she could refuse if she wished. But how could she? Refusing an emperor would only burden her brother. She chose to attend, suppressing her hesitation for the sake of the kingdom. Shortly after, Prince Juliet arrived, flanked by his wife and their young child. His wife, Ionia Rosenta, looked at the princess with worry. Seeing her pale complexion, she gently suggested skipping the breakfast to rest instead. "I'm fine," she lied gracefully. "I've always been pale." Suddenly, the announcement echoed. The emperor was already waiting in the dining hall. Drienne scowled at the news. They were early, yet the emperor was already impatient, but at his wife's urging, they moved to join him. Genis Nantra, the ruler of Nisante, rose to greet them. His eyes lingered on the princess, praising her beauty with a voice smooth as silk. She offered a polite curtsy, but his unwavering stare made her skin crawl throughout the meal. Finally, he broke the silence with a question. "Do you have a fiancé?" When she answered no, a look of distinct relief washed over the emperor's face. Drienne's eyes narrowed at the reaction, suspicious of the intent, but the emperor waved it off as mere curiosity. Back in safety, her mind wandered. If marriage was her fate, she wished it was with someone like the man from the garden. But melancholy washed over her. He was just a servant, not a noble, not an archduke, just a man she couldn't have. Besides, her time in this world was running out. Wandering the garden one last time, she looked for Enoch, wondering if he was busy. Twilight fell, painting the sky purple, but he never came. She pouted, vowing to scold him properly next time they met. Suddenly, voices drifted from a nearby room, a heated argument about a marriage. Her marriage. It was Dren, confronting their father, King Bignar. His voice trembled with a mix of disbelief and fury. "Why, Juliet," he roared. "I cannot accept this sudden madness. What reason could justify selling her off like this?" Overcome with emotion, Drienne turned to storm out and froze. Juliet stood in the doorway, pale as a ghost. The king's eyes widened in shock. "Juliet, how long have you been standing there?" "Not long," she whispered. But he knew. He could see the truth in her eyes. Sighing heavily, he gestured for her to sit. The truth came out. The Emperor of Nisante had officially proposed a union. Juliet was to marry the Archduke. She opened her mouth to protest, but her father raised a hand to silence her. "I know," he said wearily. "I know what you want to say. And I haven't forgotten the promise your brother made to you. A vow that she would never be a political pawn. That she would only marry for love. It was tradition. Rosenta princesses stayed in the southern kingdoms. Marrying into the north for politics was unheard of." Juliet's voice was steady despite the fear. "If I refuse, will it bring danger to our kingdom?" Her father looked down, defeated. "We have held peace with Nisante for 40 years. It is a fragile thing." "And if I say no," she pressed, Would the emperor destroy that peace over a rejected proposal? The king closed his eyes. The emperor was adamant. Sometimes, my daughter, personal happiness must be sacrificed for the survival of the nation. Drian slammed his fist on the table. This isn't an alliance, it's coercion. He swore to fix this mess himself, refusing to let them win. He turned to the king, eyes pleading. Father, please do not do this. Do not force her into this hell. But amidst the shouting, Juliet spoke up. I will speak to the emperor myself. Defeated, the king nodded. He looked aged by 10 years as he granted her request to handle it her way. Morning light brought news. The meeting was set. She would face the emperor of Nisante alone. While dressing, she formulated a plan. She just had to prove she was damaged goods unfit for an archduke. Surely, he would withdraw. Who would want a dying bride? She clung to that hope, trying to steady her trembling hands. The emperor smiled as she entered. No need for bows, he purred. We may soon be family, after all. She held her ground. I am honored, Your Majesty, but I must decline the proposal. Why? He asked, amused. Because, she confessed, my body is broken. I have been ill since the day I was born. He didn't blink. Perfect, he replied smoothly. My brother's territory, Hervental, has the best medicine in the world. We will cure you. Her plan was crumbling, desperate. She tried another angle. But I know nothing of politics. I've been a prisoner of this palace my whole life. He dismisses the concerns with a wave of his hand, claiming his brother handles the boring administration while this marriage secures the empire's diplomacy. Frustration bubbles in her chest as she snaps back. How is she supposed to marry a man she has never even met? He scoffs, calling her worries trivial, but she fires back that a blind union is a recipe for a lifetime of misery. He simply smirks, insisting that affection is something that can be cultivated after the vows are spoken. She narrows her eyes, challenging him with a question that catches him off guard. Has he ever considered she might not want a husband at all? In response, he dangles the bait, an unprecedented bride price his brother offers, and swears on his honor that the Archduke will be a faithful, devoted partner. When she begs for time to know him first, the emperor offers a portrait in words instead, a man of towering stature, with hair like spun silver and eyes of piercing blue. A jolt of recognition strikes her like lightning. Her mind races back to the mysterious man she encountered in the garden. The descriptions match perfectly. The emperor boasts that these godlike features come from his mother, a beauty beyond compare. Finally, the last piece of the puzzle falls into place as he reveals the name Enoch Latraci. She freezes in visible shock, realizing the truth was right in front of her face. If she had just taken a moment to connect the dots, she would have known exactly who Enoch was the moment she heard his name. She had foolishly mistaken royalty for a mere servant because he lacked the signature red hair and golden eyes of the Nisant bloodline. Seeing her expression, the emperor leans in with a sly grin, asking if this revelation makes the prospect of marriage any sweeter. She fidgets, quickly denying any relief, before asking the crucial question, did Enoch actually agree to this union? The emperor confirms it with a nod, but deep inside, a dark suspicion begins to stir within her. She recalls Enoch's tortured confession, remembering how he called himself a terrible monster, a man who believed he deserved no happiness, let alone a wife. The pieces don't fit, and she can't trust the emperor's silver tongue. She demands to know when she will be granted an audience with Enoch. The emperor's smile is cold as he delivers the ultimatum. Enoch remains a ghost until the marriage contract is signed. She challenges him, threatening to refuse the marriage entirely, but he shrugs with indifferent cruelty. If she chooses stubbornness, he won't stop her. When she pushes harder, he adds a caveat. She needs no permission to send a letter, provided she is willing to write it. Desperate for answers, she pens a letter immediately, but soon after, her brother confronts her, demanding details about her meeting with the emperor. She tries to keep the peace, lying that the meeting went better than she had anticipated. But before she can elaborate, he cuts her off, his voice trembling with rage as he vows to stop this cursed marriage at any cost. He reveals the emperor bought her hand with vast territories of land and sea, a transaction that treats Rosenta's princess like a commodity to be stolen away without consent. She pauses, and he catches the hesitation instantly, asking if there is a secret she is holding back. She shakes her head, burying the truth. She isn't ready to admit that she might actually be willing to accept this dangerous proposal. But before facing her brother, she needs to solve the riddle. Why would the Archduke agree to marry her, knowing the dark condition she carries? 3 days of silence pass until a maid delivers the bad news. The letter was handed to a servant. As the Archduke was nowhere to be found, fed up with the silence, she decides to take matters into her own hands and storms the estate to see him herself. But instead of the Archduke, she finds the Emperor waiting. He claims he's only there to check on his brother, who is supposedly confined to his bedroom. When he questions her presence, she admits she forced her way in because the Archduke has ignored her letter completely. The Emperor ruthlessly reminds her of the rules. The Archduke will not show his face until the ink on the marriage papers is dry. Defeated and heavy-hearted, she turns to leave, realizing she has hit a wall. But his voice stops her cold. Doesn't she care to know what tragic fate has befallen the Archduke? She shoots back that she wants to hear the truth from Enoch, not him. The Emperor's patience snaps. He urges her to sign quickly, warning that he is not a man who tolerates delay. When she asks for the meaning behind his threat, he ominously replies that she will soon understand the crushing weight of this marriage, whether he explains it or not. Back at the palace, panic sets in when she finds her nephew dissolving into tears. Alarmed, she grabs his shoulders and asks what happened. Through sobs, the boy reveals a catastrophe. His father is mobilizing the army for war. Shock paralyzes her as he explains he overheard his father screaming at their grandfather, vowing to wage total war to stop her marriage to the Archduke. The boy looks up with terrified eyes, asking the question no one wants to answer: what happens if his father never comes back? Adrenaline surges. She sprints out of the room, shouting for Juliet, begging him not to do anything reckless and to just give her a moment of time. She grips his arm, swearing that everything will resolve itself, insisting against all logic that the Archduke is not a monster who would harm her. Her desperate words trigger a memory in Juliet, pulling his thoughts back to a distant, painful past. He remembers the day he confronted Ignacia Rosenta, Juliet's mother, demanding to know why she chose to marry his father. He recalls shouting at her, pointing out that his father was old, dull, and treated his own family with nothing but cold indifference. Ignacia spoke with the calm of a queen, declaring Rosenta a powerful kingdom and insisting that this alliance would be the salvation her homeland needed. But Juliet offered a cold reality check, reminding her that his father already had a designated heir. She accepted the truth with a grace that unsettled him, but he pressed deeper, asking if she ever regretted her path had she chosen another king. Her own child would have been born to rule. Ignacia's answer was simple yet profound. The weight of a crown meant nothing to her, so long as her child had a guardian as fierce and caring as him. Drienne's expression darkened as he warned her this royal family was no sanctuary. They were predators watching from the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to tear each other apart. Desperate, she clutched his hand and begged for a blood oath that he would protect her unborn daughter and never let the royals sacrifice her like a pawn in their twisted games. Silence hung heavy in the air until, with a solemn bow of his head, he finally agreed. Fate, however, was cruel. Standing beside the queen's blood-stained bed later, Juliet demanded answers, only to learn she had perished giving life to the child. Gazing down at the newborn princess, Ignacia's dying plea echoed in his mind, and in that moment, he silently took the weight of that life upon his shoulders. Even now, his devotion remains unshaken, cherishing Juliet just as fiercely as the Emperor of Nasante protects his own younger brother. Back in the present, the princess's voice is soft as she reminds him that she sees at the depth of his love and the burden he carries for her. Drienne's jaw tightens as he responds that while the Archduke may not intend malice, his brother the Emperor is already sharpening the knife. The tragedy is that their father is blind to her heart, insisting that waiting is futile and treating her like a political chess piece rather than a daughter. Her voice trembles as she asks the hard question: if he marches to war for her sake, what becomes of his own wife and child? His answer is swift and born of duty. He claims they are royals, and they would understand the necessary sacrifice. But her mind drifts to little Ludwig, who once sought comfort in her arms instead of his father's, and she realizes with a pang of guilt that Drienne's heart belongs to more than just her. Clarity washes over her like a cold wave. Her plan to beg the Archduke was foolish, and she steels her resolve to do what must be done. Nearby, shadows whisper as two men discuss Nasante's bold move, bringing an army into a friendly nation under the guise of diplomacy. Rumors fly that the crown prince opposes the union, and they sneer, calling it foolish to reject a powerful alliance for something as trivial as personal feelings. Determined to end this, she steps into the lion's den, the Nasante palace. The Emperor smirks, asking if she seeks his brother again, but she admits she is there because she knows the Archduke has no desire to see her face. He spots the cracks in her mask, and as she sits before him, she demands the truth. What does an emperor stand to gain from this forced union? His answer is chillingly simple. He gains her explaining that he only wishes to give his brother what he needs, just as Drian would do for her. She rises, her aura flaring with defiance, declaring that while the Archduke's needs are a mystery, one thing is certain: he will never truly possess her. The Emperor finds her resistance amusing and makes a confident wager, betting that in time, she will eventually forgive his brother. Her reply cuts like glass. It is already too late, and he has lost the bet before it began, before she turns and walks away. Back in Rosenta, panic rises as a maid whispers that the crown prince has just stormed into the throne room. Juliet commands the maid to follow, and as they near the doors, the booming voice of Drian clashing with their father shakes the hallway. The king is relentless, insisting that Juliet must bear the heavy cross of her royal birthright. Drian roars back that he promised to carry that burden for her from the moment she was born, and it is their father who has betrayed that sacred vow outside. She commands the guards to open the gates. When they hesitate, claiming bad timing, she bursts through herself. Drian spins around, shocked, demanding to know if the king summoned her. Her voice is steady amidst the storm as she answers simply she came of her own free will. She faces her brother, telling him he does not need to scream or go to war for her sake, begging him to stop sacrificing everything when he has another family to protect. Tears threaten to spill as she admits that if he abandons them because of her, the guilt would be a cage she could never escape. She pulls him into a gentle embrace, whispering that she will be fine, before straightening her posture and demanding the marriage papers. The next day, the air is cold as Juliet scans the room, noting Drian's heartbreaking absence before her father and the Emperor arrive like looming shadows. Her father signals the beginning, and she glances toward the Archduke's spot, but the Emperor's cryptic words about his absence echo in her mind. A shockwave hits her as she sees a man actually standing there. Her father asks if she falters, but she shakes her head, bearing the turmoil deep inside. They move to discuss the bride price, and to Juliet. The amounts discussed feel excessive, as if they are buying a goddess rather than a princess. The Emperor cuts in with absolute authority, declaring the princess is priceless, worth every coin and more. Formalities end, and she signs her life away on the paper, immediately asking for permission to excuse herself before her mask crumbles. Her father grants it, noting her pale complexion, and though a guard offers support, she rejects it. She must walk this path alone. As she retreats, her mind spirals into chaos. How could the Archduke inflict this cruelty upon her? The palace had been her entire universe. Her brother and his family, the fortress walls that kept her safe and warm. Yet, in a single heartbeat, she has abandoned that sanctuary, trusting him, only to step into the unknown. It was not the Emperor who dragged her from her sanctuary, but Enoch himself, the man who was her shield, her family, her home, all betrayed for the ambition of a lofty Archduke. The moment he enters her vision, fury ignites in her veins. Does he find pleasure in this twisted game? Does he enjoy watching her crumble under his deception? She steals her heart, locking away her fragility. She will not be played for a fool any longer. She demands answers. Why the cruelty? Why send a proxy to sign their marriage papers? But he stands there, a statue of stony silence. The dam breaks. She lets her frustration spill like poison, confessing that she regrets the very second their paths first crossed. He tries to say her name, but she snaps. "If this is your love, it is a curse," she screams, shoving him away. "You have poisoned my life and destroyed my world." In that shattering moment, the verdict is final. He is no man, he is a monster. With eyes cold as ice, she brushes past him, leaving the confrontation and him behind. Time begins to blur. The Princess of Rosenta steps out of her protective nest into the unforgiving world. Enoch notices her fatigue, offering a hollow apology that their arduous journey falls on her birthday. He promises the world to make amends, a grand ball at the Herventel estate, or any treasure her heart desires. Cynical, she challenges him. "What else can you possibly give me?" His answer is absurdly grand. He offers her the ocean itself. She scoffs at the sea. "Bring me my brother," she demands firmly. "Immediately." Enoch offers to write a letter, but Juliet knows a piece of paper is a flimsy promise. He vows to try his absolute best, but his words feel empty. A dark smile plays on her lips. "Why not start a war?" she teases dangerously. "Tell him to behave, lest he wants to live as a royal of a conquered nation." She knows exactly who she's talking to. Enoch is a man who prefers threats over diplomacy. He offers only stoic silence. Upon arriving at Herventel, Juliet requests the annex. Enoch warns her it lacks the splendor of the main palace. It matters not, she replies coldly. In this cage of gold, comfort is a ghost she cannot catch anywhere. But entering the room, she freezes. The space is filled with furniture and decorations imported directly from Rosenta. A maid beams, explaining the Archduke prepared these treasures especially for her. Juliet's reaction is sharp and immediate. Get rid of it, she commands, her voice trembling, or bury it under white sheets. I cannot bear to look at them. The terrified maid hesitates, fearing for the princess's sanity, and suggests a doctor, but Juliet refuses to be treated. The Herventel estate, blessed with eternal spring and short winters, should have been a paradise. Yet for Juliet, she has stepped into a blizzard that never ends. She is trapped in a personal winter. Enoch arrives to check on her, ordering the physician to find a miracle cure. Juliet waves it off weakly, claiming it is just her yearly fever. He clasps her hand, swearing to grant her every wish once she recovers. She rips her hand away. Leave, she cries. Stop acting like the savior when you are the disease plaguing my life. You are my biggest problem. Despite his desperate efforts to bring spring to her world, her heart remains frozen. 2 agonizing years drift by. Now, the Archduke enters the room to find Juliet fading, teetering on the precipice of death from a severe fever. Her voice is a fragile whisper. If I die, send my body back to Rosenta. It is a final, crushing request. It is the least you can do. Guilt carves deep lines into his face, yet she smiles faintly, asking, Is the ocean truly as blue and sparkling as you promised? He nods, admitting it is. She sighs. I wish to see my brother and my garden one last time. And the festival, she breathes. The grand annual festival in Rosenta, the one I watched from the tower, riding on my brother's back. Enoch bows, the heavy weight of her dying wishes on his shoulders, and silently departs. As the door clicks shut, Juliet wonders, does he realize how impossible those demands are? She closes her eyes, expecting nothing. Morning light breaks. A maid reads aloud to soothe the silence. Enough! Juliet interrupts. The maid asks if she wants another story, and Juliet nods. Anything, as long as it is not about Rosenta. Suddenly, she is told a visitor has arrived. She expects Enoch, but a voice from her dreams calls her name. It is Drain. How? She gasps. It doesn't matter, he replies, stepping into the light. It has been too long. The dam breaks. Emotions crash over her as they collide in a desperate embrace. She is holding him. She is truly hugging her brother. Tears soak her face. I thought I would die without seeing you, she sobs. Drain holds her tighter, his voice a steady anchor. You are not going to die. He pulls back, his eyes tracing the fragile frame she has become. She is wasted away, thinner than a shadow. Has life here been hell? He asks. She shakes her head, lying through her pain. It has been fine. But her voice betrays the suffering she has endured. I am sorry, he whispers, guilt in his eyes. I never should have let them take you to this place, Saul. A sudden realization strikes her. Wait, how are you here so fast? The journey from Rosenta takes 2 weeks. He reveals that a new path is being forged, a lifeline connecting Rosenta and Herventel, though the construction is still underway. But there is a secret behind this road. Part of the land used for it was sold by Miles, a detail Juliet is hearing for the very first time. Dwayne drops the bombshell. The newly acquired territory has been christened the Little Queen's Land. Juliet freezes, completely taken aback. The realization hits her. That was the childhood nickname given to the Princess of Rosenta. She wonders why Enoch would go to such lengths for something she never even asked for. Despite the shock, gratitude swells within her. She thanks the Archduke for making this reunion with her brother possible and urges him to extend his stay. Dwayne asks about her life in Herventel, his eyes full of concern, but Juliet deflects, insisting he speak of his wife and child first. Then, his gaze shifts to the painting of the ocean on the wall. Juliet admits with a soft smile that Enoch was the one who hung it there. The scene shifts back to earlier. When the Crown Prince first arrived at the estate, a maid had escorted him to the Archduke's private quarters. The moment he entered, the pleasantries vanished, and a heavy confession spilled from his lips. Enoch listens as Dwayne admits a grave error he deeply regrets allowing his brother, Villainess, to ever set foot in Rosenta. Dwayne recounts the past. 4 years ago, he made a devil's deal with Villainess. The military aid offered was more valuable than anything the desperate prince possessed at the time. Villainess had done him a massive favor. And this, Dwayne says with a bitter laugh, is how the debt was repaid. Enoch offers only a quiet, understanding apology. Dwayne reflects that this guilt will haunt him for the rest of his days. Yet, with steel in his voice, he insists he would make the same choice if destiny forced his hand again. He begins to explain the dark history of his bloodline. The royal family of Rosenta carries a terrifying curse, passed down through the generations. Enoch's expression remains stoic. He is already aware that Juliet suffers from a mysterious illness. Dwayne confirms the worst. It is hereditary, immune to all medicine, and mocks every physician. It is a ticking clock that strikes when a princess turns 20. Every single princess of Rosenta has fallen to this shadow. Once the symptoms appear, the decline is brutal and rapid, usually claiming the victim within a single year. For centuries, the royal family has buried this secret deep within the palace walls, hiding their tragedy from the world. Juliet had always believed she was simply born frail. But Dwayne unveils the grim truth. The disease is the price of an ancient pact their ancestor made with the dragon. It is a death sentence. For generations, no princess of Rosenta has lived past 30, fading away quietly in the palace or on isolated islands. In all of history, only one princess ever escaped this cruel fate. Dwayne recalls the year Juliet turned 16. He toured through the world, searching for a cure, begging rulers of allied nations for any hope to save his sister. That was the moment fate intervened, and he crossed paths with the man named Villainess. Villainess replied with the promise that sounded too good to be true. He claimed to possess the most valuable treasure in existence, the only thing that could save the princess. Desperate and out of options, Dwayne invited Villainess to the royal palace. The schemer proposed to trade the cure for Juliet's life, but the cost was steep. Dwayne had to lend him his army. Dwayne's voice trembles as he reveals the truth. The item in the box was none other than Enoch's mother's heart. Dwayne stares at Villainess in horror, questioning the sanity of it all, and orders the madman to leave his sight immediately. But Villainess remains chillingly calm. He explains that Juliet's condition isn't a disease at all. Her mana is simply draining away until her soul flickers out. Dwayne scoffs at the notion. Magic vanished from the continent 200 years ago, but Villainess counters with a smirk. Magic still breathes in the land of Nisante. Mana, he lectures, is the foundation of all magic. While most humans have a spark, it is usually so small that it remains useless. Villainess continues his lesson. A person overflowing with mana can cure someone lacking it. It is a simple transfer of life force. Dwayne finds it impossible to believe. By the laws of nature, mana should return to its original source, not flow into another. Villainess then speaks of the fallen mage's Empress Latina's lineage, a family recently declared dead to the world. Once scandalous and all-powerful, the family fell into ruin. Yet, the blood of mages still runs strong in their veins with every new generation. Dwayne recalls the tragedy. The Empress, blinded by love, surrendered her family's wealth and power to an emperor who wasted it on decadence. Any child with imperial blood was claimed by the emperor. Villainess clarifies that while the family fell, their magic did not die. He assures Dwayne of his plan. He intends to retrieve a member of that cursed family, specifically the eldest son who can wield the magic to its full potential. But Enoch is to be spared. Villainess claims, with a twisted sense of loyalty, that he cares for Enoch as much as Dwayne cares for Juliet. He explains the macabre science. The Empress's heart acts as a vessel for mana. It never decays, remaining hard and lustrous like a precious gem. Villainess reveals a fragment of the crystallized heart. He notes that the rest of this gruesome treasure remains in the hands of the current emperor. The final offer is made: lend the soldiers, and Villainess will secure the rest of the heart. Dwayne made his choice. He fashioned the fragment into a bracelet for Juliet. Although the gem gradually lost its shine, the miracle happened. Juliet's condition improved, defying the curse. Dwayne gave the soldiers to Villainess, received the remaining piece of the heart, and bought his sister her life past her 16th year. The revelation leaves Enoch in deep contemplation. He wonders if his mother died not by natural causes, but was sacrificed for this very purpose. Yet, he accepts the cruelty of fate. The will decreed her heart would go to his brother, so this outcome does not surprise him. Dwayne finishes his tale. He demanded Enoch's heart in exchange for the visit to Herventel, a test to see if magic still existed, and a lie to justify his journey to his father. He confessed in disbelief. He never imagined Enoch would agree to such an outrageous demand. But then, chaos erupted. A messenger burst and Enoch was needed at the annex immediately. Drain rushed to the scene, calling out desperately for Juliet. She answered him, her voice faint and trembling with tears. He begged her to hold on. He reminded her of their dream to see the vast ocean. He swore they would go there together, with his future family, promising he would find a way to save her no matter what. Just like before, Enoch stood guard nearby. He reassured Juliet softly. He urged her to endure just a little longer, then silently handed a small box to Drain before turning away. Drain ordered Cal to prepare for departure. Time was their enemy. Then he handed a delicate necklace to the maid to place around Juliet's throat. The maid implored him to stay and comfort her, but his reply was calm and cold. That necklace would do more for her survival than his presence ever could. Through her haze, Juliet asked if he was leaving for Rosenta. He vowed to stay right there until she was fully healed. With trembling hands, the maid fastened the necklace around her. Time passed, and her eyes finally fluttered open. Drain leaned in close, checking her condition. She smiled weakly, apologizing for being a burden. He pulled her into a tight embrace, whispering his relief that she was finally awake. But in his mind, he knew the truth. A mere fragment of the heart had restored her, just like before, but eventually, she would need the whole heart to survive. Before leaving, he commanded her to take her medicine and focus only on happy thoughts. He stressed that she must never remove the necklace. She nodded weakly, bidding him a quiet farewell. Her curiosity then shifted to the Archduke. She asked the maid, only to learn he had left Herventel's cell even before Drain did. Juliet remembered the title of the land bought from Miles. She felt a pull to see him. Ignoring the maid's offer to send a message, she resolved to go to him herself. Days turned into a week. Juliet asked for the Archduke constantly, but he never returned. She scolded herself for worrying. For 2 years, she had treated him like a ghost, yet he was always the one waiting for her. Then, one morning on the balcony, she saw him. Relief and shock washed over her. She called his name, and he answered instantly. She rushed down to meet him, demanding to know where he had been. He apologized softly, explaining he was inspecting his territory. He never intended to keep her waiting. He asked why she sought him out so diligently. When she thanked him for bringing her brother, he looked genuinely stunned. He told her not to be surprised. He was simply returning what he had stolen from her. His gaze softened as he checked her health. She admitted she felt well, though she wondered if it was just the joy of seeing her brother. Then, he noticed the gem at her throat and asked about it. She explained it was a gift from Drain, lamenting that its color was fading. Finally, he dropped the bombshell. A carriage for Rosenta was ready. She could leave whenever she pleased. Juliet's eyes went wide. Was her world finally opening up beyond these walls? She asked him what he meant. He told her she could leave in 10 days. He warned that the coming rains would bring a bitter cold, so she must depart soon. Apologizing for the short notice, he assured her he had already secured the Emperor's permission for her to cross the border. She asked if he would accompany her, but he declined, citing business elsewhere. She asked how long she could stay in Rosenta. His answer was simple: as long as you want. He admitted it might seem strange, but his only regret was not giving her this freedom sooner. Juliet met with the doctor, who confirmed her miraculous improvement. As he planned her new medication, a thought crossed her mind. Perhaps, finally, she wouldn't have to face a tragic end. Before her departure, Enoch handed her a parting gift. He made her promise to open it only once she reached Rosenta. She swore not to stay away too long and stepped into the carriage, telling herself she would see him again when she returned. Enoch turned to Encall, leaving her safety in his hands. When Juliet arrived in Rosenta, Drain rushed to her, uncontainable joy radiating from him. She wiped his tears, telling him this was a happy day. They caught up on news of their father and Isonia. Then she saw Luddle. He had grown so tall and talkative. She hugged him tight. The bliss of returning home after 2 agonizing years was overwhelming. In that moment, she nearly forgot about Enoch's gift. She nearly forgot about him. She glanced down at the jewel on her neck. It had turned dull and gray. She worried she had neglected it. Drain quickly reassured her that the fading color was normal and offered to replace it, but beneath his smile, he dismissed it as nothing to worry about. But then, he delivers the news that changes everything. She isn't going to die. Thanks to the breakthrough medication, the shadow of death has finally lifted. As long as she stays on this path of treatment, a long, beautiful future awaits her. The relief is too much to bear. Juliet's teacup shatters against the floor, her trembling hands unable to hold it, while Dryan gently wipes away her tears. He promises her the world, a trip to the vast ocean. She eagerly adds the festival and a new garden to her list of dreams, and he agrees to every single wish. But their moment of joy is shattered before they can even step out the door. A messenger from Herventil has arrived. A chill runs down Juliet's spine. He is draped entirely in black, a color in Herventil reserved strictly for mourning the dead. He bows low, asking after her health with a solemn voice. She accepts the greeting, but dread pools in her stomach. Then, the words fall like a guillotine. The Archduke has passed away. Her world freezes. Thoughts of him flood her mind, instantly poisoning her newfound freedom with a bitter, suffocating sorrow. Trembling, Dryan asks if the tragedy was recent. The messenger simply nods, confirming their worst fears. Juliet's mind reels in denial. Enoch was a mountain, an immovable force. How could he be gone? The thought pounds against her skull like a war drum. Her brother begs her to breathe, demanding details, but the messenger offers only a cold apology. This is an internal matter for Nissan's imperial bloodline. As a foreign princess, the door is shut in her face. She has no right to know the truth. "I am his wife," she cries out. But the messenger strikes another blow. Her marriage to Enoch was nullified the moment he was dismissed. Even her taken name is gone. It turns out, Dryan had already stamped the king's royal seal on the divorce papers. Betrayal flashes in Juliet's eyes as she looks at her brother in disbelief, but the messenger isn't finished destroying her reality. It wasn't just Dryan's choice. Enoch himself orchestrated the separation, finalizing it before she ever reached Rosenta. Desperate, she begs to attend his ceremony, even just as a guest. But the messenger remains stone-faced. Only the imperial family may witness his final journey. She asks where he will rest, not with his father's line, but with his mother's kin exiled even in death. He leaves behind no wife, no child. The truth crashes down on her. She is nobody to him. She failed her duty. Failed him completely. Guilt claws at her heart, twisting painfully with the lingering, haunting memory of his affection. With trembling hands, she opens the box he left behind. Inside lies jewelry matching the necklace Dryan gave her, and a letter, a final gift for her 22nd birthday. Before grief can fully take hold, her brother interrupts. The Emperor of Nisanti demands a private audience. She has every right to refuse, yet her feet move of their own accord. She must face him. In the garden, the Emperor looks frail, a shadow of power. The sky darkens above them, threatening a storm at any second. He speaks of the past, recalling a time his younger brother trespassed in her garden, asking if this was where fate first bound them. Juliet corrects him softly. It wasn't this exact spot. Suddenly, the Emperor's eyes widen in shock. His gaze locks onto the necklace at her throat. He demands to know its origin, claiming she would never wear such a thing if she knew the truth. Then, a bitter smile, he congratulates her survival. "You will live a long life now," he says, free from the shadow of death. Confused, Juliet demands an explanation. The Emperor sighs, the weight of the world on his shoulders, and unveils the dark secret Enoch carried to his grave. Janus reveals that Enoch was cursed with a burning fever from the moment he took his first breath. A generational plague that stripped him of everything, piece by agonizing piece. His only salvation was to marry the woman who haunted his dreams. But the curse was cruel. It ensured he could never receive her love in return. "I never hated him," Juliet whispers, the truth spilling out. Even before the marriage, her heart had already chosen him. Back then, he was the picture of kindness and grace, a man who stole her breath away. Janus stands abruptly, his voice sharp. Why did she hesitate? Juliet defends herself. She only wanted the truth. All she craved was his honesty. Instead, he forced the union, shielding himself behind the Emperor's authority. He showered her with treasures and feigned devotion, yet ignored her letters. How could she believe in a love that never spoke to her? Yet, looking back, no matter how cold she was, he never complained. Not once. She foolishly believed he would always be there, waiting. She asked if his care was merely a symptom of the curse, but Janus cuts her off, his expression grim. You have it all wrong. It wasn't Enoch who deceived her. It was Janus. He confesses that Enoch's silence wasn't indifference, it was agony. The fever kept him bound to his bed. That final bout of illness was the end. Janus begged for the name of the dream woman to save him, but Enoch refused, protecting her identity until he collapsed. Janus had to hunt down the truth himself. Juliet asked the question that burns in the air. Why hide this until now? Because I hated him, Janus admits, his voice thick with resentment and grief. He had sacrificed his body, his freedom, and everything he owned to save his brother. But in the end, Enoch chose death over risking her safety. He courted death right in front of Janus, consuming toxic herbs and sealing himself away. He let his body rot while his soul withered. When Janus finally broke down the door, his hand met Enoch's face in a stinging slap. He screamed, demanding to know why Enoch spat on every sacrifice made to save him. All Janus ever wanted was for his brother to survive. But Enoch turned a cold shoulder to that desperation, leaving Janus drowning in a deep, bitter sense of betrayal. Juliet's voice trembled. She asked if that betrayal was the reason Janus had lied, telling her that Enoch refused to see her. He admitted the dark truth. Back then, he wanted Enoch to taste the same burning rage he felt. He hoped Enoch would one day speak the truth himself, but the Archduke remained silent, craving only a sliver of love from the princess he cherished above all else. Juliet whispered the question haunting her soul. Were his actions born of true love? Or were they merely the twisted puppet strings of the curse? Why did he pour such kindness upon her? Why give her everything when she had given him absolutely nothing in return? Janus explained that Enoch's silence came from his timid nature. Juliet asked if he was defending the dead, but Janus cut her off with a sharp warning. She was not yet ready to hear why he had chosen death. Finally, Janus dropped the veil and delivered the devastating truth. Enoch would still be breathing if not for her. The jewelry resting against her skin, those were not gemstones. They were the shattered fragments of Enoch's very own heart. The world stopped. Juliet stood frozen, stunned into a suffocating silence. Janus continued the torture. Enoch's mother had once cursed them, claiming their hearts were too repulsive to be loved. Enoch believed that if he hid his true self, the girl he adored might one day look at him without disgust. The Emperor laid every secret bare before Juliet. He revealed that she only drew breath because of the Archduke's mother's heart. With that sacrifice in Rosenta's army, he had seized the throne in a bloody conquest. He recounted the storm that had raged around her while she lived in oblivion. Janus lowered his head, admitting the tragedy was stained with his own sins. If he had swallowed his pride, if he had shown mercy, perhaps fate would have changed. But he quickly added the harsh reality guilt cannot resurrect the dead. The Archduke was gone forever. Juliet's tears fell like rain, and Janus apologized again, his voice heavy with remorse. She returned to her quarters, a hollow shell. Deanne immediately rushed to her side, demanding to know what had happened. Trembling violently, Juliet confessed that Janus had revealed the entire nightmare. She asked aloud if his blood was on her hands. Diane fiercely assured her it was not. But she raised her voice, hysterical, pointing to the glittering shards of the Archduke's heart hanging around her neck. Why did he do it? Why never tell her the marriage would end? Dean explained that he and the Archduke had agreed to annul the union long before the tragedy struck. He spoke of the heart matter, revealing that the Archduke had demanded a price in return, a condition she could barely comprehend. Juliet realized the cruelty of the bargain. It was a deal where only one side bled, and only one side benefited. She turned away, weeping uncontrollably. She imagined the torture Enoch must have felt, seeing pieces of his own life force adorning the woman who didn't love him. He must have been drowning in agony, sorrow, and perhaps even a righteous hatred toward her. Dean pulled her into a tight embrace. He reminded her that she was like his own firstborn, asking what kind of parent could stand to watch their child fade away. Now, every time thoughts of Enoch invaded her mind, her fingers drifted to the cold fragments of his heart resting on her chest. Grief consumed her until she refused even food. Days bled into weeks, and Diane realized this wasn't illness, it was a slow surrender to death. He asked how she fared. She insisted she was fine with a hollow smile, noting that since she wasn't dead, there was nothing to fear. Suddenly lucid, she noticed his presence and asked why he had come. He suggested a trip to Princess Island to see the ocean with his family. She agreed. and for the first time, a faint spark of life returned to her eyes. On the ship, the waves whispered calmly, and the wind offered a soothing caress. Dian asked if the vast ocean matched her dreams. Juliet smiled softly. She replied that it was as deep a blue as the paintings she adored, made even more breathtaking by the dancing sunlight. But she requested to stop at the villa first. She needed to walk the island's path alone. Her heart pounded as she entered a silent, ancient structure. She prayed this was the resting place of Urgus, the mythical dragon who sacrificed eternity for a princess. As she descended the dimly lit stairs into the abyss, a voice began to resonate from the shadows. It spoke to her soul, noting she had come willingly. It promised that it alone held the power to grant her deepest, most desperate desires. Any wish could be granted for the right price. Juliet realized with a shiver that the legends were true. The myth was breathing right in front of her. Guided by instinct, she slid the ring from her finger and let it fall into the darkness. In response, several mystical artifacts materialized before her eyes. She reflected that while her heart beat, she had been a walking corpse for years. With resolved eyes, she reached out and grasped the sword. She drew her own blood, completing the ritual's dark requirements. And then, through the haze of magic, she saw him. Enoch. His spirit spoke, pointing out the irony. She had longed to return home, yet now that she was there, her eyes were still devoid of joy. He asked what more he could have possibly sacrificed. He had given his life, his very heart, just to see her smile. Yet here she stood, utterly miserable, tears streaming. She screamed the question at his ghost. Why? Why did he never tell her the truth about the curse in the dream? He countered with a heartbreaking truth she would not have listened. He reminded her of the cruel words she once spoke that she couldn't even bear to look at his face. Tears streamed down her face as she gasps out an apology, blaming the fever for her cruelty. But as she reaches for him, his silhouette begins to dissolve into mist, whispering that it is too late. Desperate, she turns to the ancient legends. The myths she once dismissed as fairy tales were real, and they were her only hope. She realizes the impossible is within reach. Time itself can be reversed. A massive dragon looms over her, reciting ominous titles before demanding her wish. Her resolve hardens like steel. She vows to rewrite history and undo every mistake she ever made. Enoch had sacrificed his life for her, even after she treated him with such coldness. Now, she swears to return that devotion tenfold. The river of time and the land of death lie beneath my wings. The dragon thunders. It bows solemnly before her, sealing the pact to grant her desire. She plunges into the void, stumbling through darkness. She searches frantically for Enoch, willing to risk her very soul to save him, just as he had saved her. Silence answers her call. Panic sets in. Has the bargain already been struck? She remembers the terrible price written in the ancient tome, The Life of a Royal. After an eternity in the abyss, she finds him. She collapses, pouring out apologies and resolving to fix everything. She is ready to make another deal with fate. She would offer her own life without hesitation if it meant erasing the curse that tormented him. I will never be cruel again, she sobs, begging for one last chance. He takes her hand. Flash suddenly, they are back in the safety of her bedroom. Enoch is there, checking her condition with worry. Nearby, a maid whispers that her fever has finally broken. Overwhelmed by reality, she throws her arms around him in a tight embrace. Please, she cries, never leave me like that again. He freezes, and the servants gasp in shock at her sudden affection. As she calms down, they explain the lost time. After collapsing outside the Archduke's chambers, she had been lost to the fever for 5 long days. Enoch turns to leave the room, but panic surges within her. Why are you going? She demands. Your fever is gone. He replies softly. There is no need for me to stay. But she refuses to let him go, reminding him the doctor ordered him to stay close due to the severity of her illness. She whispers his name, and a magnetic force pulls him back. He feels compelled to take her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. Sit, she pleads, patting the edge of the bed. Though bewildered by this new dynamic, he cannot bring himself to refuse. Her fingers brush against his skin. She begins to tell him of a nightmare, a terrifying vision where he refused to listen to her pleas. He flinches, trying to pull away. Are you leaving? She asks, voice trembling. No, he assures her quickly. I simply do not wish to hurt you. He pauses, searching her eyes. Is there anything else you wish to say? Her answer is simple but desperate. Live. Just live. He nods in acceptance. Later, in the quiet of his study, Enoch stares at his hand. He can still feel the phantom warmth where she pressed it to her cheek and kissed his fingers. What is on your mind? Enoch asks. Enoch remains silent. If you are worried, go to her, the aide suggests. It has been 3 days since you last saw her. Enoch shakes his head, his expression guarded. I will go only if she asks for me. Enkal studies him closely. She opened her heart to you for the first time in a year. Perhaps that nightmare truly shook her. The Archduke scoffs internally. He doubts it. A sudden change of heart. It is likely just a fleeting whim. He wrestles with the logic. Do people beg someone they despise to keep living? No, and yet she did. Suddenly, news arrives at the princess's chambers. The Archduke is here. Her face lights up with joy. Let him in immediately, she commands. He enters, holding a bouquet of rare blue roses. How is your health? He asks stiffly. I am fine, he adds quickly, anticipating her question. He hesitates, the blue roses trembling slightly in his grip. Remembering Enkal's advice, he asks about her feelings. Sit here, she says warmly, pointing to the chair beside her bed. Her eyes fall on the bouquet. Did you bring those for me? He nods silently. She accepts the flowers with genuine gratitude. Thank you, she says softly. And I am sorry for my rudeness earlier. The illness clouded my mind. He waves it off, reassuring her. Please, she requests, her voice tender. Look me in the eyes when we speak. As their gazes meet, a beautiful smile blooms on her face. Suspicion gnaws at him, this sudden warmth, this undeniable affection. Is it real? Can he trust it? It unsettles him deeply. How could she change so abruptly? Tell me, he probes. What kind of dream was it really? She goes still. The silence stretches, heavy and thick. Regret instantly washes over him for pushing too hard. You do not have to answer, he says quickly. But after a brief hesitation, she begins to weave the tale of her nightmare. Not long after, he bows formally. Thank you for allowing me to visit. Quietly, he slips out of the room. Left alone, she stares into the stillness. The weight of her secret presses down on her. If she were to die, the pain would destroy him far more than it would her. The thought suffocates her. How can she tell him the truth? How can she explain the dark fate that lies ahead? Could he even endure such a burden? Bitterness coats her tongue. Intentional or not, she realizes she is always the blade that wounds him. Meanwhile, Enoch's mind drifts back to her words. The dream. The fear of him being sent away. The memory drags him back to the past. To the day his father, the man he hated with every fiber of his being, took his final breath. He remembers the scene clearly. There were no tears, no words, only a vast, hollow emptiness where grief should have been. And Cal's words echo in his mind. People do not cry for those they truly hate. The realization strikes him like lightning. Why then? Did Juliet weep for him? Why did she beg him to live? Ansel steps into the room, breaking the heavy silence. He informs the Duke that the princess has safely returned to the annex and has sent a letter addressed directly to him. Unfolding the paper, he reads her polite apology for lingering in his bedchamber. She ends with a rare offer, asking him to name anything his heart desires. Yet, suspicion clouds his gaze. He believes that a woman capable of such profound self-deception could never speak the truth so plainly. Despite his doubts, the quill dances across the parchment. Once finished, he exhales a long, heavy breath, forcing his racing heart to slow down. He tries to convince himself that this warmth is nothing more than a fleeting dream. To hope for reality is a luxury he simply cannot afford. And yet, a dangerous question burns in the back of his mind. Could her actions mean that she actually holds love for him? Meanwhile, back in the annex, Juliet waits with bated breath. Her eyes are fixed on the door, eagerly anticipating Enoch's response. The maid freezes in shock when Juliet asks to read the reply. In the past, she would have ordered his letters torn to shreds or cast into the fire unopened. Juliet notices the hesitation. She knows the servants and the physician have not adjusted to her transformation, but she accepts their caution without blame. She scans the elegant handwriting only to find that, true to his nature, Enoch asks for absolutely nothing in return. With a soft expression, she orders the maid to treasure the letter in a special box It reminds her of the days she obsessed over the color red, filling her world with it. She had banished the color blue simply because it reminded her of him. Even though she secretly adored the shade, she admits her past actions were petty and childish. But things are different now. She commands the maid to bring out the jewelry box she had kept hidden in the shadows for so long. Together, they sift through her wardrobe. Juliet is determined to find a gown that perfectly matches the sapphire jewelry she has finally chosen to wear. If you want to see their romance bloom, comment Juliet below. Until next time, ciao.